the school website and get to my website, like from the school's faculty links, on my front page, below where it has my schedule, it just says click here, like to link to the YouTube channel. And on that YouTube channel, if you missed yesterday, look for Basic Geometry Lesson 2.5. And that would have a recording of what we did in class. So that could help you with some of the examples and the notes and things like that. So since a lot of you were gone yesterday, yes, she's gonna copy the notes, but that might not make any sense. So that recording, I think it probably was like a half-hour long as far as the examples that we did in class, things like that. So you missed class, so that would be a way to get caught up on it.
Just a question, are we on the front or the back?
We're gonna be on the front first.
So like the writing or?
The front like this way.
Okay,
That's what we're taking.
Yeah, so again, you can take your notes on here. If you think that this is gonna get lost, then go ahead and write them in your book, in your own notebook. We're gonna do properties today of equality and of congruence. There are 3 properties that are mentioned here on the front side, and then there's 5 other ones on the back. Reflexive property is the first property to talk about. Reflexive property is just an expression is equal, or we could say it's congruent to itself, depending upon if they're in congruence or equality. So I've got a place there for you to do an example. My red sheet. Okay, equality would be something like AB is equal to AB. AB means the distance between 2 points. So I'm saying the distance is equal to the same distance. If you were doing just algebra, 5 equals 5 would be an example. 6 equals 6 would be an example. Finding my notes. In congruences, if we use the congruent symbol, we have to name the actual segment. Segment AB is congruent to segment AB. That type of a statement is true because of the reflexive property. It's just saying that something is congruent to itself. If we're talking angles, with equality, it would say measure of angle, say 1, is equal to the measure of angle 2. If it's the reflexive property of congruence, it would look like angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. So as far as comparing, how do you know if it's the reflexive property of equality or the reflexive property of congruence?
The congruence.
Yeah, pay attention to the sign. These two are of equality, these two are of congruence. But they are both reflexive property because the expression is equal to or congruent to itself. The very same thing on both sides. It's probably the easiest one to pick out. Okay, the next property is called symmetric property. And there is a symmetric property of equality and of congruence also. This one says the expressions on the 2 sides of the equality or congruent symbol can be interchanged. What do I mean by interchanged? Switched, yeah. The left becomes the right becomes the left, you just change places with them. So let's make a segment equality type of statement. If AB equals CD, then switch the 2 sides of it, and you come up with, what's on the right side here? CD. So now that becomes the left, and the left side now becomes the right. So if AB equals CD, then CD equals AB. Angles, if the measure of angle A equals the measure of angle B, then switch it around. So fill in the second blank with
Measure of angle B equals measure of angle A.
correct. Left side and the right side just exchange. Congruences, if I'm doing segments, it would be like if segment XY is congruent to segment AP. Then, Dylan, what's this gonna be when we symmetric it? Correct. Segment AP is congruent to segment XY. Just switch the left and the right side. And then an angle congruence example. If angle ABC is congruent to angle XYZ, then symmetrically we can say, okay, Dustin Ladder,
XYZ is
with the angle symbol in front of it. Okay, so it starts one way and then we're switching the two sides. Symmetric. Flip the two sides. Symmetric.
Hold on.
Hold on, hold on.
Sorry.
Again, pay attention to whether there's equal signs in it or congruent signs in it. That'll tell you whether it's that property of equality or congruence. All right, and the third one is transitive property. This one has the most parts to it, and I think of transitive, or remind myself what it is by thinking of a train, and I'll tell you how that works. Okay, it says through a chain of equations or congruences, you can get expressions equal or congruent that were not known before. Order is important to the chain. Okay, let's make a segment one. If AB equals CD, and now here's the important order. I need to repeat the CD, the right-hand part, again for my next equation. So if AB equals CD and CD equals XY, then what expressions are equal that were not known before? AB is going to equal XY. So this is like that law of syllogism yesterday where it has the connecting idea. Up here we had the Q statement that repeated to connect it. That's the same type of thing here. What's on the right-hand side has to repeat as the left-hand side to be the link together. And when you're creating what goes in the conclusion part, you don't use that repeated segment length. So if angle 1, I guess measure, if the measure of angle 1 equals the measure of angle 2 and measure of angle 2, I need to say, is equal to, let's not make it boring, measure of angle 5, then measure of angle 1 equals measure of angle 5. Transitive. So the train idea is I'm thinking of this as the engine, and then there's all kinds of cars on the train that hook together, and the caboose is at the very end. So my conclusion is that the engine and the caboose would be equal or connected to each other. That's the idea. Okay, let's try congruence. For segments, I would go if segment AB is congruent to segment MP and
MP is congruent to CP.
segment CD, okay? Then
AB is congruent to CD.
correct. Segment AB is congruent to segment CD. Be sure you're getting the segment symbols. When you have the congruences, you need the segment symbol up on top. And then an angle one, if angle A is congruent to angle B and angle
B,
B is congruent to
C,
angle C, okay? Then
angle A is congruent to angle C.
I think you've got it. Is he the only one that's got it? Or thumbs up or down? Are you making sense out of this? Okay, I'm just saying you've got it. Okay, you're gonna show me that. You're gonna prove it to me. Here's some sample problems I want you to do. Now this does have a front and a back, but we haven't talked about the things you need for the back yet. So on this sheet that I'm giving you, there's two sets of well, this one's matching, this is fill in the blank, but related to the properties that we just went over. So let's take a few minutes and complete these samples, and then we'll go on to the back sides. Use your notes as you need to and go down and match those up and then fill in the blanks. We'll check if you really do have it. If you're not taking notes good, maybe you need to be at least I'm going to lay it here so that when we're done with the lesson, you would be able to do that quiz probably before in the class. Fix up your notes there so that matches correctly. They both are the same property, they're both reflexive. Notice this one has congruences. Yep, so yeah, fix up your notes on the reflexive. We did kind of talk about it, not big, but it is something we should do. So yeah, maybe that'll direct some of the learners. Let's wait till tomorrow. Okay, on the practice worksheets, okay, check to see that you did it right. Number 1, D, 2E, 3C, 4F, 5A, 6B. Okay, on the bottom. Number 1, measure of angle A. Number 2, GH equals EF. Number 3, measure of angle 1 equals measure of angle 3. Number 4, segment KL. Is congruent to segment KL. Number 5, angle 6 congruent to angle 5. And number 6, segment AB congruent to segment EF. All right? Okay, quite a few. First ones were DEC, FAB. Thank you. Okay, any to discuss on that? Okay, seemed like you did pretty well then. Okay, let's go on to the other properties. So the back side of the notes. We will get to the back side of the examples, but put that to the side. Back side of the notes. Now the properties on the front side, we had an example that would work in equality and in congruence. The back side is only equality because you cannot do calculations with congruences. Okay, the addition property, now you use these in Algebra 1. Okay? Addition property, Colton, is adding the same number to each side of an equation produces an equivalent equation. So an example there. If it said solve x minus 9 equals 16, just a real simple equation, what would you do to solve it? Add 9 to each side, right, is what you're really doing. You're adding 9 here, you're adding 9 here, so you come up with x equals 25 by the addition property of equality. This is the equation that was given, and then you did one property to come up with the solution. when you do your homework assignment, I'm going to ask you to be writing these statements off to the right. So you do have to start with what's in the book. You do have to write down the given equation and then show me what you're doing, tell me what the name of that property was. So when I give you some problems to solve on the homework, I don't want you just to solve them, but I also want you to put that right-hand column, what you're doing at each step. Okay, subtraction property. You can subtract the same amount from each side of an equation and it still stays an equal equation. So my example was x plus 7 equals 30. That's your given equation. And so you would be subtracting 7 from each side. And we get x equals 23 supported by, okay, now don't abbreviate too short on that. Subtraction property of equality. You cannot abbreviate it SUB because if you look down the list, the bottom one starts SUB also. So you've got to go far enough or write it out completely. Okay, next one's simply multiplication property of equality. You can multiply by the same amount on each side of the equation. And it comes out with an equation still that's equal. So what do I write before or beside 1/3 x equals 12? I need to write the reason. How do I know that?
Multiplication.
No, not here.
Oh,
This is what we were given,
okay.
okay? Then, what are we gonna multiply each side by? 3. Multiply by 3 on each side, and we get 1/3 times 3. The idea was you wanted it to cancel out? Oh, you're saying 4 because of this side? No, it's not 4.
12, or 36.
36. X equals 36. Supported by the multiplication property of equality. So you're doing the algebra steps just like you did last year, but you're just writing the property to the side to tell what property you used in doing it. And finally, the division one. Dividing each side of an equation by the same non-zero number produces an equivalent equation. Why non-zero? Can't divide by 0. So solve 5x equals 30. That's what you were given. What are we going to divide each side by? 5.
6.
X equals 6. And supported by
The division property of equality.
division property of equality. All right, well, we ran out of operations. Add, subtract, multiply, divide. What's the last one? Substitution. Substitution is just what it says, substituting. Substituting, or maybe you want to put replacing. Substituting a number for a variable in an equation produces an equivalent equation. So this would start out a little bit different. It wouldn't say solve. It's evaluate. Evaluate 5x plus 7 when x equals 3. So that's what you were given. And what are we going to do? We're going to put x plus 3, or x equals 3 in there. I think I decided I'm going to write 5x plus 7 down here. That's what we were given. Substitute in the 3 means 5 times 3 plus 7. That was the substitution property of equality. So notice I didn't do any calculating. I just plugged it in there.
Is that all you have to do then? Just plug it in, or do you have to take it all the way?
Right, now I didn't do the evaluating completely, so go further.
Okay.
So now to finish it, let's just simplify to finish. So what do we get? 15 plus 7, and we probably have to simplify again. 22. Now why did I put simplify instead of like addition property of equality? Well, notice there's no equals anywhere. So I wasn't adding on each side, I was just computing. All right, so let's flip to the back side of that sample worksheet. and do some problems off of there. Maybe we won't do every one. Let's do like every other one or something like that. Okay, let's start out with number one. Number one said, and this is like what you would have for your answer. 5x plus 10 equals 40. What's your support for that?
Subtraction.
Nope.
No, addition.
No, you're going the next step. Where did I get this
Oh,
from?
given.
It was just given.
Given.
Okay, now think, what would I do?
Subtract.
Okay, so we're gonna subtract from each side and get
This
5x equals 30, and what's the reason?
subtraction.
Subtraction, property of equality. Okay, I'll kind of draw a line so that you know which ones I'm lining it up with. Okay, next step, by 5. X equals 6, supported by division, property of equality. See, you're just writing what property to name what you're doing. Austin, are you with me? Doesn't look like it. Okay, question on that one? Okay, let's go down to number 3. Number 3 says 3x minus 7 equals 29 plus x. Okay, that's what we were given. Now this has more than one way you could do it. Okay, give me an idea.
Add 7 and
Okay, not just to 29, but to both sides.
29. Yeah.
So you're getting now 3x equals 36 plus x supported by
Addition,
property of equality. Okay. If that was our first step, what's our next step?
Then
Subtract
x.
x from each side. So 3x minus 1x is 2x equals 36, supported by
Subtraction.
subtraction, property of equality. And one more step,
5.
divide by 2. And so we get x equals
16. Or
18.
18.
supported by
16.
division, property of equality. Now the 2 I skipped over had a multiplication property of equality in them as the solving instead of just division. All right, let's pick one down at the bottom. Do you like 5 or 6?
5.
And let's do number 5. Okay, number 5 down at the bottom for a sample. Let m equals 15, and then we want to solve the equation that's there. Okay, what are we going to start with? What's given?
6x plus n equals 57.
Equals 57, that's what was given. Okay, then what do we need to do? Correct, substitution. So we're going to do a substitution property of equality. So just substitute in, and let's see, m's supposed to be 15. So 6x plus 15 equals 57.
Subtraction, property. Subtract 15 minus 57.
Okay. Subtraction property of equality. Saying subtract 15 each side. So we get 6x equals 42. Divide by 6. Okay, that was division, property of equality. Oops, I forgot property. Okay, getting the hang of it? Okay. All right, so you're writing that right-hand side, that's important in this lesson.
Can we go over a multiplication one again?
Yes, we can. So either four, jump up to number 2 then. I'm gonna write the assignment on the board while you're trying number 2.
Okay.
So he wants to jump back up to number 2, so we got one that has multiplication. For the one that you're asking about, for number 2, did you figure out what to do? You got x over 4 plus 12 equals negative 20. That was given.
Times 4, multiply 4 by both sides.
Don't multiply by 4 yet.
You have to subtract 12.
Let's subtract the 12 from each side. So x over 4 equals negative 32. That was the subtraction property of equality. Now you're multiplying by 4. Multiply by 4 on each side. Because the multiplying by 4 will cancel out the dividing by 4 that was there. So x will equal negative, I think it's 128. That was the multiplication property. Okay, so the assignment that I'm giving you is you're naming properties. Remember the first part was the reflexive symmetric transitive? I think that's what the assignment begins with, another matching set on those properties. So most of this is naming the properties, reflexive, symmetric, or transitive, of congruence or of equality. A little bit of review on the page 94. And then at the back of the book, I'm giving you the odds because I like those better. But you need to give the property that you're doing for every step. Just like we were doing every step along the way.
Fun.
So write it down and let's start in probably 5 minutes. You can probably get the first 15 properties matched up.